Good day, class. Hope so. You all are fine and doing great. May Allah keep you protected. Dear students, in today's lecture, we will discuss about the Victorian age, Victorian norms and values. As you all know, that the subject is comedy of manners, and in this genre, the writers they have tried to criticize the Victorian morality and norms and values. So we must have some sort of understanding about the Victorian age, its etiquette, and its morality. Basically, I'm not going to give you a historical overview of that age. I am going to tell you about the norms and values and etiquettes which actually were prevailing in Victorian society. Because if we study, particularly if we talk about first two plays, um, Pygmalion and the importance of being earnest, they are totally discussing the Victorian mannerism and Victorian society. So, I think being the student of history of English literature, you all are very well aware about the different ages or different eras in which basically the kings or queens they uh, they had introduced some sort of different norms, values about religion and societies. So, Victorian society is one of the renowned societies in literature which on which so many works have been written. As the basic definition of literature is the reflection of society, so the literature produced in late Victorian era and after Victorian era depicts the complete and true picture of the Victorian society through the criticism of its Victorian manners, particularly in plays which are included in the genre of comedy of manners. So let's start about the discussion. Basically, Victorian age is famous for its fashion. Victorian dress was very famous in its age. Uh, it comprises various fashions and trends in British culture, because usually we talk about the British culture, and they prevailed in Victorian era, in the reign of Victoria, in the rule of Victoria, which started from June 1837 to January 1901. Victorian dress or Victorian fashion was actually women oriented. In 1840s and 1850s, women's gowns developed narrow and sloping shoulders. They were low in waist and they had pointed waist, bell-shaped skirts, knee-length uh, chemise, layer of flounced petticoats were worn under the gowns. So in the pictures you can look that this is the reflection of the Victorian society. But how it developed? Basically, it was developed by Queen Victoria. And who was Queen Victoria? Queen Victoria was known as the grandmother of Europe. Basically, she was the ruler of England, but she is known as the grandmother of the Europe because she and her husband Albert, Prince Consort, had 9 children, who had 37 children, means the grandchildren of Queen Victoria. 8 of whom sat on the throne of Europe, means from the family of Victoria. 8 of the members, they had the rule of different 8 countries of Europe like Great Britain, Prussia, Greece, Romania, Russia, Norway, Sweden, and Spain. The Queen herself was a carrier of hemophilia, and her son Prince Leopold was born with the disease. She has the disease of hemophilia, and her son Prince Leopold also having that disease. And the Victoria's daughters, they also passed these diseases to the royal houses of Europe, and basically this disease become the disease of royal family. It is also called as royal disease. Basically, this is a medical condition in which the ability of blood to clot is severely reduced, and it causes the sufferer to bleed severely from even a slight injury. So, the royal families suffered from these diseases, and this disease was declared as royal disease. There is some of the renowned members of Victorian family. Kaiser William II, 1859 to 1941. Charlotte, Duchess of Saxe-Magonen, 1860 to 1909. Prince Henry of Prussia, 1862 to 1929. Sigismund, Prince of Prussia, 1864 to 1866. Victoria, Princess of Schaumburg, 1866 to 1929. Vladimir, Prince of Prussia, 1868 to 79. Sophia, Queen of Greece, from 1870 to 1932. Margaret, Landgravine of Hesse, 1868 to 1940. These are some of the renowned members of Victorian family other than Queen Victoria. So, as I have started the discussion about the dress, in mid-late Victorian age, the new princess gown changed the line of fashionable dress. The princess gown was cut in one piece and consisted of a number of joined panels fitted and gold from shoulder to hem that gave the figure shape through meaning. So basically, in that age, this sort of fashion was actually set by the Queen Victoria. From the royal families, these fashion trends were introduced, and these trends about dresses were implemented all around the Victorian counterparts, mean in the areas where Queen was ruling. So basically, it tells us the limited or fixed description of women with regard to its fashion or independence. Women were not allowed to be independent, although Queen Victoria herself was the ruler of the England, but rest of the women, they don't have any particular right. They were supposed to follow these particular dressings, particular norms according to the patriarchal conditions and norms. The late Victorian women, they also have the different outlook as compared to earlier Victorian women. Their dressing style was also changed. Their waist seam with bodice and skirt cut in one. Horse riding was one of the most renowned hobby of the Victorian era, and it was the hobby for Victorian women as well. So now we are moving toward, basically, after dressing, there were some etiquettes of conversation. In those etiquettes, first of all, the people were asked to avoid certain things in social conversation. Do not manifest impatience. They were not allowed to show impatience. The royal families, they have set this tradition that people must wait while they are talking. They don't have to show their aggression or impatience. Do not engage in argument. It was also a suggestion or a practice which was followed by the people in any social conversation, that do not engage in argument means they try to avoid about argument in social conversation. If they have such issue, they must have to go some sort of other legal option, or they have to put those arguments in the form of request. And they were also asked not to interrupt when speaking. Mean to say, in royal families, it was taken as a bad manner if someone interrupts in speech. And the people were asked to not to find fault if even if they have any evidence, or if they want to criticize, they must have to gently criticize. In Victorian era, the people were also asked to not discuss their private, personal, or family matters. Like in Pygmalion in Act 3, the flower girl, when she sits in front of Mrs. Higgins and her friends, she starts to talk about her family life, her private life. She discusses about the death of her aunt. She discusses about the drinking habit of her father. And the people who are sitting there, they are shocked. So these things were actually forbidden at that time. They were not allowed. So why these were not allowed, and why the characters were reacting? Because at that time people were not allowed to do so. There are some other etiquettes as well. Do not lose temper. Do not allude to unfortunate peculiarities of anyone present. Do not start your conversation by allusion to weather. Do not do, when narrating an incident, continuously saying you see, you know. Means the choice of language was also, and this is the most dominant theme of Pygmalion, the choice of language and the use of language, that even the use of language was also set by the royal families, that how to use the language at particular occasions. It was also suggested the people of a higher class not to introduce professional or other topics in the company which generally cannot take an interest. So these were actually sort of social practices which were followed in the social conversations. Another interesting thing is, I think, if you remember the first play, The Importance of Being Earnest, in that in Act 1, Jack and his friend, they discusses about the table manners, and they are waiting about some guest, but they themselves start eating. So actually they are mocking, but Victorian society has some particular dining manners, and they were followed very strictly. So as compared to our society, you can see that they were set as sit up straight. The people were asked to sit up straight, and they were required not to speak when their mouth full of food. They were expected to chew quietly and try not to slurp. People were expected to keep bites very small and eat at a leisurely pace. And means if you try to analyze these manners show the sophisticated natures of Victorian manners, and the people like Flower Girl in the second play, they were the like the people from lower class. They actually do not follow such rules, such norms, such manners. But the people from upper class, they were expected to follow these things, like sitting straight, not speaking when eating food, chewing quietly, getting small bites, and eating at a slow pace. All these things were not actually for lower class, but these things were required for the upper class, and these were called as basic table manners. But these were not the only manners. They go further. Do not wave utensils in the air. Like usually people of so lower class, when they don't have food in their utensils or dishes, they try to wave to get some food by the other people. So it was were forbidden for the higher class people not to wave their utensils in the air. They were also expected to keep their elbows off the table so that it doesn't show that they are hungry or they are waiting for food. So do not reach the food by themselves. People were not allowed to take the food directly. They were supposed to call servants to serve them the food. It was also a manner to thank you, to say greetings to the host. If without going without thanks or greetings was considered a bad manner. And even it was also suggested for the people sitting on a dining table to excuse themselves when they leave the table. So I think if you try to analyze the novels included in this level, you can easily detect that some of them are incorporated, presented in the stories, and the characters, they show the these mannerism, and these are criticized through the comedy, through the satire. Even these are not limited to dining table rituals. They even expand to tea time and meetings. In Act 3, Pygmalion, Mrs. Higgins is waiting for her friends for tea. Picnics and tea time, they were very popular, and they were also considered as the social manners of the higher society, upper class people, to arrange tea parties and picnics. And they were became popular because they provide the opportunity to escape from the formal dining rituals. But in still in tea time, they people were supposed to follow the manners like of dining table, like they were not supposed to call they were not supposed to reach directly to tea. They were required to ask servants to supply. Even including with these norms, people set their particular days on which they visit people or the people used to visit them, and on these particular days they set those tea parties and picnic parties. At that time, there were also rituals about the mourning or lamenting or the dead. And at that time, when people die in Victorian society, the people usually they used to stay like in present time in our society. People used to remain in the house of the dead until the burial, and at that time the body was surrounded by the family and the friends. People try to view and touch the deceased, and it was a very common practice. Even children were also not spared, they also used to view the dead. This was also a ritual, although such thing is not portrayed in the discussed plays, but this was also a ritual at that time and it was followed. Bicycling, although you people can think that bicycling is related with such thing which is about mannerism, but it is said that there was a specific costume for cycling. This picture is taken from the Google, and Mrs. M. Cook wrote in 1896 that it is impossible to do good work or to practice comfortable unless you are properly dressed. And women were asked to have tricyclist were asked to be tricyclist because it was the uh, only allowed conveyance for them or to use them, and having the particular dress for that. This outfit was very common in that era, and women used to have this outfit whenever they try to run the tricycles. There are some other rules for dining as well. At that time, married couples were not allowed to sit together, and they were never seated together. At that time, ladies were asked to remove their gloves once they are seated, while gentlemen they were required to remove their gloves prior to being seated. Means before reaching to chairs, they must have removed their gloves. The senior lady, either by age or social standing, is always led in first by the host of the party. The hostess arrives last on the arm of the senior male. This was also norm. This actually tells us about the social class system or social morality or Victorian morality, which I have discussed a bit in the end of this lecture. And it was considered ridiculous to make a display of the napkin. Means you can't show your napkin to the other people, you have to put it on your elbows, on your thighs when you are seated, as per practice. At that time, it was forbidden to say meat. People were asked to say in beef. People were also not allowed to turn up their cuffs in carving. They were not allowed to take bread, even if it is within your reach, you must have to call up the servant. So this is some sort of funny, but it was followed, and it was very actually strictly followed in that time, that if bread is in front of you, you cannot take that bread, you have to call the servant. Never cut your bread with a knife, it should be broken by hand. It was also the custom of Victorian society not to cut the bread with knife. And it was also a custom to use napkin before or after drinking. It was also mandatory. Adding further in etiquettes and manners, at the time of meeting, the people used to rise on one feet when someone is introduced or someone enters the room. Ladies were required to do a little courtesy and men greet with a bow. They were also People were also asked not to turn the back on someone when you have to remove yourself from the attention and presence of someone. To answer a door, look out the window, you always ask to be excused. Means at every level, at every place, you have to follow the manners. And there were also rules for ladies, how to be a lady in Victorian etiquette. The women beauty was considered as natural, with fair and clear skin due to good health, having rosy cheeks and zest for life, and interesting eyes due to a sharp and educated mind. These On these bases, I think in second play Pygmalion, a detailed description about the lower class girl transformed to an upper class girl is given, that how she looks like an upper class lady. So these things were actually given by the upper class, elite class, which were followed, and not following these things actually result people to have bad manners. So the ladies were expected to be modest in feminine styles, and colors much preferred, means they have proper color combination. There was also distinction between men and women dress at that time. There was no room for ambiguity, means the women can't wear the dresses like men, and women can't wear dress like men. They totally have different dresses for each other. Like in today's England or America, the women, they wear pant shirts like men. Apart from these etiquettes and manners, there was also Victorian code of morality or Victorian class system. This class system was adopted by Queen Queria, and it was prevailing, uh, and it was prevailing at that time, and it was designed to keep certain people in power. Upper class was the very top, was on the top on the social pyramid, means it was a, you can see you can imagine a triangle having the upper class on the top, and the people from the middle class and working or lower class are on the bottom line. In that system, aristocrats and land owning elites, they have the power, means they, Victorian age also had the traditional system of power. In Victorian England, the upper class had absolute political and economic power. How they had? Because they had the right of vote. The people at that time, they had the right of vote, and the people who had the right of vote must have property, and property was owned by the people of the upper class, and are those who are from the royal class. And upper class people, they were the only group in Victorian era or age who have the access to education, which was exclusive and expensive. Even at university level, the people from the lower class or middle class were not allowed to take admission. There were some exceptions from lower class and middle class people that they got admissions or they tried to study at that time. Only upper class people, they were actually considered to be the uh, people who can avail education. And basically upper class was marked different. This debate is also uh, shown or criticized by the writers in the importance of being earnest and Pygmalion. The distinction between upper class and lower class is continuously portrayed throughout the acts of the play. So the thing which actually make the upper class was the fact that they do not work. They were the people who have the land and property inherited by the families, and they make their monies, they used to make their monies through the investment in business or the profits gained from the lands. So these were the people who were considered upper class. And from the people who are the from upper class, they were also the part of the royal class. Although royal families, they were considered the elite, more upper part of the society, but they have marriages and or other societal relationships with these upper class only. They don't have gatherings or relationships with the lower class or middle class. While the middle class and the lower class people, they were considered uh, as a secondary creature. They were not treated equally. They don't have the right for vote, and they were not considered as um, the people who follow manner. Their language, which is also discussed in Pygmalion, was considered full of slangs and taboos, abusive language. Their manners, their dress, all the things of which were followed by the lower class and middle class were different from the upper class. This all was set by Queen Victoria to make them distinct from each other, and it was set to make the upper class remain in power and supporting her and her kingdom. So, dear students, it was all about the today's lecture. This was a basically review lecture in which I have tried to cover the some important points related to Victorian mannerism. You people can find and you people can analyze these manners when you will read the text of your plays. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.